This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sarah and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a topic.
The Gorge is brought to you by Patreon. That's patreon.com/thegorge, where for just $5 a month, you gain access to not one, but two podcasts. That's hell you're walking into. A monthly podcast where I drag Ben kicking and screaming by his ankles into the Nasuverse. And take out a commentary track where we watch other things and talk over it because we don't feel like playing video games that week. So, like I said, head on over to patreon.com/thegorge. It is not required, but we always appreciate it. Thank you very much to all of our patrons already. And, yeah.
You know what? I forgot to pull those up, so let me do that real quick.
Oh! Okay.
Because we have a bunch of them to thank now. Also, while I'm pulling that up,
yes.
we hit it, but if you want us to keep doing it,
oh yes,
help us get to $200 a month or over to unlock the Bad Game, which is another monthly stream where Sarah and I will play some absolute garbage games.
What was the one we were talking about doing next? Was it the Bouncer? We said we were going to try and do the Bouncer.
We're going to do the Bouncer.
Next.
We're going to do the Bouncer next month. February will be the Bouncer. We did
Guys
last week, and that's going to go up on YouTube soon. But yeah, so they're very fun.
God bless the ring.
God bless us, every ring.
I don't think the Bouncer is as bad as Guys, but I do think it still belongs in the Bad Game. So.
Oh, for sure. Thank you to that other one dude, Shia, Patrick Perez, Magus, Otzi, Neon Hellcat, Liam Lane, Hasotobi27, Alice Marks, Acomancer, Saturn, Jack Toops, and Roddy One Half.
We love you all.
We couldn't do this without you. But, Sarah, what are we doing this week?
This week we still had Hades on the brain, sort of, so we decided to go back and play Supergiant's other two games. I mean, there's three, but one of them is a little bit bigger, so we didn't play that one. We played Bastion and Transistor again. So that we can finally talk about these two games, because we really want to. Hey, did you know Supergiant makes good video games?
Supergiant is really good at isometric games about death and or the end of the world.
It's actually really funny going back to Bastion. I like Bastion. Disclaimer. I like Bastion. But going back to Bastion, boy, it feels like their first game.
It's a little
rough.
I'm not going to say it aged poorly, because it didn't. It's still a really, really fucking good game.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things in Transistor and Hades that are almost objectively better than Bastion.
Pretty much everything Transistor and Hades do, they do better than Bastion. There's just so many little, quality of life and, movement things, and it's really hard to articulate that. But, control and movement and playing on a controller, those little things just feel really weird in Bastion. I could never really vibe with it. It's the one thing I was thinking in my head the whole time was that there are certain encounters in this game that had me thinking hey, this combat isn't good enough for this to be this hard. You know what I mean? There's a couple times when you're getting fucking mobbed, and all I'm thinking the whole time is no, this is not good enough for this to be so difficult. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I still like it, but I definitely see how it's their first game, and you can see how they kind of iterated on it for Transistor.
How they've grown.
So let's start with Bastion and then talk about Transistor. I think that's a good,
So, there's a certain thing, I think, overall, there are certain things that each of these three games do better than the other.
Sure.
I honestly think Bastion's character design is probably my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, I like the
little squatty dudes.
The little squatty dwarf type dudes. I love the southern countryside aesthetic.
Sure.
I think that's really cool. I don't know. I just think like overall, like its art style is the one that like sticks out to me the most.
Right,
Like
that very pastoral kind of look.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I like Transistor and Hades a lot too, and I really like Transistor especially. Mm-hmm. But like Bastion just feels so like appealing to me.
Cozy. In a way. Yeah, like the Bastion itself feels very comfortable. Mm-hmm. So let me think. No Clip did a documentary about the making of Bastion, and I think one of their initial concepts, and you can kind of see it in the final game, one of their initial concepts was it to be like building up like an RPG town, and then they decided to go with something a little bit more adventure oriented, and you can kind of see that in the game, like with the Bastion being so cozy, and you're building little shops and stuff, and they're really just there for upgrades and shit. But like, you can see that vibe, and like it definitely has the art design of a little JRPG town, just, you know, in a completely different, like, insane context, you know?
Right.
So like I vibes with it. It's not my favorite. It's actually probably my least favorite of the three that I've played. But I don't think it's bad necessarily. It's funny, the little squatty dudes are like my least favorite look. I prefer their new models with the very slender, very articulated characters.
I played Bastion and Transistor like back to back, like I do like an hour or two of Bastion, and then I'd play an hour or two of Transistor. And like the immediate upgrade in like model quality is just like, oh wow, okay.
And by the way, I still have the cough from having COVID, so I will probably have a cough drop in my mouth this entire episode. I'm very sorry, but also the other option is me just coughing the whole episode, so, you know. That being said, like, I love this game because it has all of the hallmarks of, like, their first game. Like, the models are kind of cute and squatty, and one of the things I thought was really funny was when you get the battering ram, and it doesn't look like the same kind of model at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's way more like a 3D render than the kid, who looks more painted. And I just thought it was really fun. I'm like, oh yeah, this is super obviously the first game in this company's, like, repertoire. It has all of, where it's just, like, you know, I think they, like, the company's founders initially worked for, like, Ubisoft or something like that. And so, like, they obviously had game design experience, but you can just see in Bastion just a whole company trying to figure out, like, what are we doing? What are we trying to make? And it feels it's very interesting to find a game that feels like they kind of found the game as they made it. And that's not a bad thing. It's like a really interesting thing to me. Because I still think Bastion is a really good game. It's just like my least favorite of the ones I've played. But it's just so interesting to just kind of, maybe it's because I know, like, the backstory, but when I look at this game, it really does feel like a game made by people who weren't sure what they were making until kind of far along in development.
It feels,
and I really like that.
You know, it's kind of that same approach where you're like, your favorite game is not necessarily the best game. So, like, Bastion really appeals to me over Hades and Transistor, but I don't think it's their best game. I still think that's Hades, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Bastion is just so appealing to me. I also think Rux is Logan Cunningham's best character.
I can't agree.
I think
not when Mr. Nobody is right there.
I mean, I just think his narration is so good.
Honestly, okay, I'm so sorry for this. It kind of started to wear thin after a while.
Really? I loved it the entire way.
Yeah, no, at some point, I was just like, can you shut up for 5 minutes and let me just, like, fight shit? I don't know why, but for some reason, because, like, Mr. Nobody talks a lot, too. He's talking constantly. But, like, something about Rux was just grating on my nerves the whole time. Like, not the whole time. There are parts of it where it's really, really great. But sometimes I really was just like, be quiet. Let me work. Maybe it's because I get so tired. Maybe it's because we've been, like, in quarantine. And I'm so tired of... This is going to sound so stupid. I'm so tired of getting phone calls from my teammates at work. And sometimes Rux chiming in, it felt like that. And I'm just like, can you just be quiet and let me smash monsters with this hammer? Go away. It's very stupid.
I think that's his best. Like, I fucking love it. I think I love it because Rux himself sucks so much.
Oh god, I'm so glad we get to have this conversation now. Rux sucks so much.
He's a bad person.
Like, I'm sorry, but if you leave Zulf behind, there's something wrong with you.
Right?
Like, when you get the full story, you suddenly go like, hey, wait a second, is this like a racist old man? Is this who I'm helping? Just like a shitty racist old guy? Oh no! I think he sucks so much as a character.
It's this dawning realization as you progress through the game that the kindly old man who's been helping you is actually kind of nefarious and using you.
He's kind of a shitty guy. Like, he's not giving you the full story of, like, what the Bastion does. He's just kind of he wants to reset, like, what he fucked up and, like, destroyed, and he doesn't want to take any responsibility for it. He just kind of wants to restart it. But, like, they won't remember. Like, he specifically says none of us will remember any of this. So, like, resetting it won't change anything, which is the implication with New Game Plus. So, like, yeah. Picking the reset ending is nothing is going to change. They're not going to make things better. It's just going to happen all over again. And it's just like, he's not telling you what's going on. You're not getting the full story. And it's like, dude, you built this thing. You built the Calamity Machine to literally do a genocide. Like, I'm sorry, I don't feel bad that it kind of literally blew up in your face. Like, I'm sorry, bro.
It was that line when you do the first Who Knows Where.
Yeah.
And you get to, like, near the end, and it talks about how, like, the kid has been doing all this for an old man who ain't even asked his name yet.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, oh god, that's so good, because he's right.
You don't know the kid's name. Nobody ever asks his name. And it's just like, man, you suck. Like, he just sucks so much. It's really funny to me, because Logan Cunningham, of course, voices him, like, so charmingly and so warm, you know? And then when you, like have to think about it, you just go like, hey, hold on a second. Like, it really did start to soak in. I was like, I think this is just like a shitty, racist old grandpa who, and like the city, like at first you're like, oh, the city is so, it's so, you know, it's beautiful and peaceful. And then like you hear about it more and you're like, hey, wait a second, this place sucks. Like, when you find out about like the fact that the Ura refugees are never allowed to leave.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this place sucks. It's built on keeping people out, and everybody who lives there is like trapped there. Like, it's just like a very pretty cage. Nobody's ever allowed to leave. That's actually not true. The fucking Ceylondians, thank you. There's a Ceylondian missionary who's allowed to go down to the Ura's place, but like the Ura can't leave and go back to their own homeland, and like, so like they're allowed to come and go as much as they fucking please, but like the Ura basically just get to live in a fucking prison, you know, like a pretty gilded prison where people treat them like shit.
They literally live in a hole.
Yeah, they live in a hole, and it's just like. Wow, okay. This place sucks. It deserves to be destroyed. The only part that sucks is that a bunch of innocent people got killed in the process of it being destroyed. But, like, everything about the fucking city itself sounds like ass. Like, no. Why would you want to bring that back? You learned nothing.
And it's so great. It's that great slow build, too, because I always think of that one scene. I think it's in, I don't know, third or fourth level, where you're still seeing, the ash statues.
Yeah.
And Rux is just going down like, didn't make it.
Right.
Like, he's naming them, and then, like, telling them what their jobs were, and then just didn't make it.
Didn't make it, yeah.
Because that's so good. Oh, God, that's so fucking good.
It's so tragic. You know, like, that's the whole, I think the most, like, the biggest, argument, there's my English, the biggest argument for, like, the resurrection ending is this, like, well, maybe a few more people, like, might make it this time, but, I mean, we know that they don't. It's all just gonna repeat over and over again, so it's really just, like, this tragedy that, like, Rux created, and now he can't, like, Resurrected is just letting him run away from, like, the fact that he made this. You know, Zia's dad was, like, forced to work on this project. And so, like, the fault belongs entirely to the
Ceylondians.
Ceylondian. Why do I want to keep saying Seldonians? Whatever. The Ceylondians. It all totally belongs to the Mancers. And it's, and like, even shit like, there's that bit where Rux is talking about the Calamity Machine, and he's talking about how, like, we had to, build this just in case, which, one, fuck you, and then two, he says, like, it wasn't even one of our own who made it work, and it's said in, like, a really dismissive tone, like, bro, this Ura guy figured out the thing you couldn't figure out. You're not that smart. You're not that great. And, it's amazing, because I hadn't played Bastion in a billion years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very fun to go back and go like, oh, right. This guy's an asshole.
Oh, right, yeah. Rux is terrible.
He's terrible. He just gets by on the fact that he's voiced by Logan Cunningham, who is an angel.
He's the only one who knows what's going on, so he's allowed to lead everyone around.
Yeah, he's a total unreliable narrator, like big unreliable narrator, really. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's so, no, don't pick the fucking resurrection ending. That lets Rux off the hook, you know? Mm-hmm. Zulf deserved his revenge on fucking Rux. Like, absolutely. Yeah. He totally deserved to have the Ura, fuck out the Bastion. 100%. I feel bad for Zulf more than anybody. Jesus.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
Yeah. God. Yeah. For sure.
What a nightmare story. No. And I'm glad you can save him, and maybe eventually he'll come around to liking everybody. I don't know. I hope.
Yeah. Well, who knows how that game actually ends, or like to what extent the Calamity actually did? Because, like, did it just destroy Ceylondia, or did it, because the Ur are still alive? Like,
right.
What does the rest of the world look like?
They mention other countries and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, Rux says something like, imagine the look on their faces when we show up and dock this thing, and he's talking about the Bastion.
Yeah.
Like, we dock this thing at their ports. So it's like, oh, other places surely exist, right?
But I
don't know.
That reminded me of, like, one of the, like, how tragic this game is over, I think, like, even Transistor. Mm-hmm. Is that, like, even doing things like, putting the shards in and stuff to upgrade the Bastion, mm-hmm. is, like, they clearly expected more people to arrive.
Yeah. I think it's because it happened. I think the idea is that it happened so suddenly,
mm-hmm.
or that nobody really ever, I guess, believed,
right,
to go to this one place in the event something bad happened. I don't know. I don't know, like, they don't really ever explain, like, why people might not have shown up. Maybe they all just thought Rux was crazy.
I think it's because it just happened too quickly. I think it's because it was an act of sabotage against the Calamity Machine.
Right.
So, like, they didn't send out a broadcast like, we're firing the Calamity.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it just happened. So all that's left are just, like, a handful of people who weren't in the blast zone at that moment. It's like, man, that part sucks. It's so... I think Transistor, at least in my head, ranks as like a more tragic story, which we'll get to in just a second. Because like at the end of Bastion, there are still people alive.
Right.
Like everybody, there's still like the Ura are still alive, and there are the implications of other countries, and the 4 of them, if you're not a crazy person, are all still alive to keep going, and that's a little sliver of hope. It's better to at least have something and keep going versus nothing.
Right.
So I don't know,
but
go ahead.
I think about like the stuff that the kid does with the idea that Rux's reassurance that this will all get fixed and not knowing what that means. Like that level where you find a bunch of animals who are trying to build their own bastion.
Yeah.
And you have to take their shard because you need it more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, if you had known, you wonder if it's like if the kid had known what the Bastion was going to do, if it was going to rewind things, would he have been so eager to go along with everything Rux says to do? Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. It is very, in that way, it is very tragic because you don't have the full story and you're just going in blind and being misled. And, it's like, oh, it's kind of sad. It's very tragic.
And then, like, all of his narration about, like, about Queen Anne and stuff like that, where it's like these legends and part of the culture of Caelondia.
Right. That's all gone.
Being destroyed, and the only remnants left need to fall too, so that you can get the resources you need.
Yeah.
Like it's by your hand that the culture of Caelondia gets destroyed.
And it's interesting though, because like we said, Caelondia kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. It might be better that culture kind of fell away in order for at least like a handful of people to survive and maybe learn something from this, instead of nothing, instead of just everyone dying and nobody being able to make it, because like that it's better, at least for like people who don't deserve to totally die, like the kid and Zia and Zolf, like they don't deserve to just kind of like waste away and starve in like an underpowered bastion. But then it's like, it makes more sense in that case for like the history of Caelondia to totally disappear in order to like let a handful of people live. Mm-hmm. Like it's better for that at the very least instead of the resurrection ending, which to me is just like you're trapping everyone in a loop. Mm-hmm. You're making them relive the same thing. All of these like tragedies will just keep happening over and over again, like the things that happened to Zolf's like fiance and like the incredibly hard life that Zia lived and like the hard life that the kid lived. Like they will keep like it's that whole, it's really interesting because like Rux has such a idealized version of the past in his head. These ideas of like, he says I miss all the songs and stuff, but like, and that's true, but then you think about like there weren't a lot of songs in like Zia and the kids' backstories, which is funny because Zia sings, but there isn't like a lot of good happy times in taverns and shit like that.
The kid's whole backstory is about how he suffered for 5 years in the most dangerous job in the world.
Right.
Comes back to find out that the money is gone and that his mom is dead, so he just goes back.
Yeah, he just goes back to go do the most dangerous job in the world a second time because, like, what else has he got to live for? Like, what else is he going to do with himself? And it's like, yeah, there's not a lot of songs and good times for those two. So you're going to reset everything and they will have to relive that however many times until you get it right. Or do you decide to take, like, some accountability for the decision you made and go on and, like, try to live and let the people who did have these shitty lives growing up actually, you know, do better. You know, it's like, it's a pretty obvious choice to me. It's a pretty obvious choice to me to be like, yeah, let, like, you know, Ceylonian culture, like, die. That's Rux's fault anyways. This is just the final nail in the coffin. It's like, yeah, you kill this culture in order to let a handful of people who deserve to live. And, like, yeah, Rux is there too, but, you know, somebody needs to know how to steer the ship.
Yeah.
But it's super interesting. Like, I remember playing Bastion for the first time and being kind of impressed that there was more story there than I expected.
Yeah.
I was expecting more, like, you know, like, Braid technically has, like, more story than you expect, but it's all the back end. You know, fuck Jonathan Blow. We don't stand Jonathan Blow around here. And so I was thinking it would have been more like a Braid situation where it would have been, like, really light on story and world building and shit. But, like, no, it's pretty heavy.
Every object in the game has like, a story behind it. And this is the first thing of the Supergiant thing where it's like, oh, we have dialogue for every situation you'll find yourself in.
We are gonna record some motherfucking dialogue up here.
We've got Logan Cunningham, and he's gonna say shit into a microphone.
That man has parlayed the most incredible career out of just, like, saying really mundane stuff into a microphone a lot. I love it.
That is what makes excuse me, that's what makes Bastion so deeply appealing, because that's the first time that happened, you know, where you just, every weapon combination has a little story behind it.
Yeah.
Every map you go to has a little narration thing behind it. Fucking, if you smash a certain object sometimes, Rux will say something about it.
Yeah, no, it's great. There's so much, like, there is, going into it, there's so much more texture and detail in the world than you would ever expect. Because, like, when you first heard about Bastion, you know, that was the hook that everybody was talking about, was it's like an isometric adventure game where everything you did was narrated. And it's like, oh, that sounds cool. And then you go into it, and it's like, no, you don't understand. No. Everything is narrated. Everything.
If you walk around the first area of the game and you take the time to smash all of the crates and whatnot, Rux says that you just kind of stand there and rage for a while.
It's great, yeah.
If you fall off in the same area a bunch of times, Rux makes fun of you.
There's so much of stuff like that, of a lot of just detail and texture, and that's a thing that they have continued. That's one of the reasons I'd really like to make some time to play Pyre if I could find time, because I know Pyre is a longer experience versus Transistor and Bastion. But I'd like to play Pyre for that reason too, to see what kind of crazy texture that world has as well. I think it's really cool.
And you can kind of get the glimpse of the path that would lead them to making the roguelike of Hades.
Oh yeah.
With Bastion and Transistor, with the weapon combination idea, with the spirits and the different gods and their boons and all that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a very clear line from each of their games that we've played. Like, you can even see, like, the seeds of potentially wanting to do some kind of procedurally generated something in Bastion, where like the ground is literally loading in front of you as you walk.
God, I love that effect so much too, by the way.
It's such a cool effect. It's such a cool effect. It never gets old. I love watching it happen. but you can just totally see that, like, even in then, I mean, that's the same path every time, but you can just see that they kind of had like this idea of like, well, what if we could have this go different directions? What if this could be, what if this path could go off in different ways, just, procedurally? And I mean, obviously that's where we get to finally in Hades, where they've mastered this whole idea of a very small setting, but let's just detail the living shit out of this small setting. It's great.
I still think every weapon combination having a little dialogue thing is one of my favorite bits of the game.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What were your favorite weapons, by the way?
I like the hammer, and I like the bow.
Bow's really good. I really like the bow
really
a lot,
good.
too. If you level that thing up, it's really good. I like the army carbine and the musket.
Okay, yeah,
like the rifle
good.
And shotgun.
Just tearing through this game. Just absolutely armed to the teeth with guns. I respect it.
I also like the Fang Repeater and the dueling pistols, just because I like when a character has two weapons.
Sure.
But they're all good.
They're all good. No, it's great.
The upgrade gear is I love the naming convention for that. Mm-hmm. That's perfect to me. I of course love the names of the spirits.
Oh yeah.
Because fucking you get something like Stab Synth.
Oh man.
I'm a sucker for good enemy names, so I like, squirts, wind bags, gas bags.
Yes.
Oh, that's really good. Peckers.
Yeah. The little squirt ghost things are very cute, and I'm amazed they never sold any like stuffed thing.
I'm amazed that squirts just don't show up in like Transistor, Pyre, and Hades.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As like a little mascot dude. Yeah.
Like I'm surprised Supergiant wasn't just like, yeah, this is our mascot now.
They should, because like it would be great to see a bunch of them just kind of like hanging around in Hades, just floating around. It'd be cute. But no, I enjoyed Bastion a lot. But I definitely felt its age. Like, I think it's very interesting. And that's a very interesting phenomenon to like be aware of. To go back to a game that when it first came out, or not when it first came out, I think I played Bastion like 2 years after it came out or something like that. But when it was new, to play it and be like, oh, I like this. And then to come back to it years later and be like, oh, they were still figuring things out. I see. It's a very interesting experience. And it's like a hard thing to articulate why it's interesting. But I think it's just because when you become more familiar with like somebody's work, you can start to look back at like older pieces of work and see where they were still learning the techniques that they've now refined, Yeah,
it's the thing that was once groundbreaking has now become their default, so like it's not as impressive anymore in hindsight.
Sure.
And by comparison,
but the isometric view never gets old. I hope they never ever stop making isometric.
That's their way to go. That's their bread and butter. They need to keep that up forever.
I hope they never stop, because I think it's just so, because especially in a game like Bastion, you get such a nice little sensation of being in a diorama.
Yeah.
Of like being like in a little dollhouse. Like that's part of the appeal of Bastion's aesthetic. I totally agree. Like that pastoral aesthetic is that you feel very much, especially with these little rinky-dink character models, you do feel like you're kind of playing in a dollhouse, and it's so charming. It just feels like you've got little teeny tiny objects that you're interacting with. It's all very charming.
And then one final thing we have to talk about this for fucking every Supergiant game.
Sure.
Is the music.
Oh god, I think this is my favorite soundtrack for sure. Like this is my favorite. No wait, we do still have to talk about Transistor.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I know Transistor is about music, but have you listened to Spike the Rail recently?
I know, that's the problem. I was just playing this and just being like, yeah, this is all so good, because it's so, like, lively and exciting and more, Transistor is more mechanical. This feels more organic. I don't even know if that's the best way to explain it, but there we go. This is just it's so lively and feels so influenced by, like, different, like, little cultural touchstones and stuff, and, but I like all the vocal tracks in Transistor so much.
They're all really good, but fucking build that wall, though.
I know. I do think this is my favorite. This might be my favorite Supergiant soundtrack still.
You've got just these dusty guitars.
Yeah.
And, like, wood instruments, and it's so natural and, like,
warm. Like, it all feels very warm and comfortable and like, exciting but not tense.
Yeah.
It's so, like, the battle theme is so, like, it's kind of fun. It doesn't really feel like it doesn't feel like music to study to. It feels like more fun than that, if that makes any sense.
It's so fucking strong. It's so good. I'm just hearing the themes in my head now, like, as we're talking about it.
I do think it's probably still my favorite Supergiant soundtrack. Like, Transistor is a close second, because Transistor has the better vocal themes. Like, The Spine is probably my favorite song of any Supergiant game. I just think The Spine is so good. But for everything else, I could say that Bastion has the better soundtrack, except for the vocal tracks.
Right.
But other than that, like, no. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good!
like, just fucking go pull up Spike the Rail or, like, Mine Windbag Mine and just, like, oh god, they're so good.
And it all flows together so naturally. Like, you listen to this game and it all weaves together and is so perfectly perfectly constructed. I probably will listen to, like, so much of this soundtrack once we get off this call.
Like, I don't know shit about music terminology or, like, the study of, like, song composition and all that.
I went to art school for art, not for music. Sorry.
Fucking Bastion got good guitars.
It sound good. Guitar good. Warm acoustic guitar is nice. Supergiant said, we will play this acoustic guitar and teach you empathy. Alright.
But yeah, fucking...
That being said...
Yeah, that being said... Everything that's really good about Bastion, pretty much everything is better in Transistor.
Oh, God. You were talking about... I was, like, holding it in. Because, like... you're talking about how much you like the aesthetic of Bastion. I love every single piece of art in Transistor so much I could cry.
Yeah, now, don't get me wrong. Transistor's a beautiful fucking game.
It's gorgeous. It is 110% like their most beautiful game, in my opinion. Like, as much as I like the character designs and stuff in Hades, I like the world design and the character design is so... There is just something so beautiful and warm and yet desolate about the art in Transistor and the world and the city sprawling in the background, and, like, they managing to, like, gamify lived-in spaces. I love, like, the gardens when Mr. Nobody is, like, drunk, I guess. But, like, the gardens as you're going up the building.
Yeah.
I just like to, like, that's, like, a space that, like, people lived in, and they still managed to make it feel like... Because that's a really interesting... That's a problem that, like... Bastion doesn't have to worry about, and it's a problem that Hades doesn't have to worry about. But, like, Transistor is set in a physical space. It's a place where like people used to live, and you still have to make the city, you have to make Cloudbank feel like a place that might have once had people in it, but still work as like combat arenas. And oh my god, they do such a good job. Oh my god, I love the level design of Transistor so much. Holy shit.
Transistor?
It's so beautiful.
Transistor and BioShock have ruined Art Deco for me.
Oh, I know.
Because now I'm like, where's your twist in your Art Deco? I can't just have this regular Art Deco. I need Art Deco horror, or I need Art Deco cyberpunk.
Yeah, this like computer. That's such a cool combination, and a thing that like I personally never would have thought to do is to combine like 1920s Art Deco aesthetics, but to be like, this is inside of a computer.
Throw some fucking Tron lines on that Leyendecker.
Fucking Daft Punk playing in the background of The Great Gatsby.
Oh my god, no, you're selling me too hard on this.
I know, it actually sounds pretty good. What am I saying?
Okay, what we need to do now is we need to get the music track for Great Gatsby and just put the Tron Legacy over it instead.
Great idea. And that's it. That's Transistor. That's just what Transistor is. You're welcome. No, but this game is so, I don't know. It's just so like, I mean, like the cutscene, like illustrations are just fucking breathtaking, and like their use of golden light in Transistor is just immaculate. It just feels so warm and so. It's so warm and so inviting, and so like the lack of people is what makes it really tragic. It's like, oh, this used to be such like a beautiful place, and now it's just totally gone.
Yeah, because it's not like I mean, at least at first, but like, you know, later on that changes. But like, it's not like your normal kind of apocalypse thing where it's like you see like a ruined building or like rusted cars or whatever in the street where it's like time has passed. Like, these are all still well preserved.
Yeah, the apocalypse is literally happening. Mm-hmm. Like around. If I had a single complaint, and this is wholly because of technological restrictions at Supergiant, but if I had a single restraint or complaint, it's the fact that we never really see any people, even though it's implied that there are still people like trying to escape the process. Like you find message boards and stuff. Mm-hmm. Of people and like, you know, newscasters and stuff talking about it happening. So like the implication is that at least for like the middle chunk of the game, like the beginning and middle chunk of the game, there are still people around. We just haven't seen any of them. I would have liked to have seen some of that in some capacity, but that, I mean, like fucking, they still can't animate Zagreus sitting down, y'all. You really think they're gonna put that many character models on the screen? Come on.
You walk around like the hub of Hades, and it's just like, oh boy, that's a lot of people. Yeah,
but you do need to notice none of them walk except for Zagreus.
They just stay in their spot.
They stay in one place, and if they go anywhere, the screen fades to black.
Supergiant is just sweating at the idea of having more than 5 people in a single room.
Having to animate all of their interactions. They didn't even animate Zagreus hugging his mom. So like, you know, we can't, this is their second game, so I'm giving that one a pass.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, no, this, you know, Transistor feels like it's such an interesting apocalypse because you're kind of in the middle of it, and it's literally happening around you. And Cloudbank feels like the opposite of Caelondia, where, and I mean, maybe that's probably why I think this game is like way more tragic than Bastion, is because like Cloudbank feels, like I said, like the total opposite of Celandia, where it's like, this was a beautiful place with lots of, people living their lives and being able to just vote to change what their city would look like that day.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple stuck-up jerks decided they were going to freeze it all. I can't stand the Camerata. Like,
they suck.
They suck. So even though I think they're all like interesting, like I think their characters are super, super interesting. I when you think about it, it's like we're gonna freeze the city in time. We're gonna keep it from changing anymore. And it's like, who gave you the right?
Right?
Like who gave you It's four. It's four.
Yeah, there's 4 of them.
Yeah, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, am I miscounting? No, there's only 4. Who gave you 4 jerks the right to be like, yeah, we're gonna stop the city in time? Like, you stuck up assholes ruined everything. And it was beautiful, and everybody it was gorgeous. And it all just gets wrecked.
I think
and it stays that way.
Yeah. I think it's really, really interesting to, like, even though you can recognize that, like, Bastion and Transistor are both Supergiant games, like, they have the polar opposite art aesthetic.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, like, not just that, but, like, tone and, like, character writing and everything are so wildly different. Mm-hmm. And yet they still feel like they're, like, the same company.
Oh, absolutely. Because, like, it's that unity of, like, of similar aesthetics that, they have the same artist do most of I think all of the art for every single game since Bastion. So you have this unity of musical styles and art styles that keeps things feeling like a cohesive body of work by a single studio instead of feeling like piecemeal. So you can kind of see the progression of the art and aesthetic, and it always feels like the same person's direction kind of steering things, but it's just evolving. So you can look at Bastion and you can look at Transistor, and they have extremely similar they have extremely different, like, tones and themes, but their vibes and their kind of aesthetics and warmth are the exact same, which I think is great. The same ideas of beginnings and endings, and, like, who is allowed to kind of dictate, and this even kind of goes into Hades as well, but, like, who is allowed to dictate the choices you make and the life you live, and, like, pushing back against that, and kind of pushing back against death, very literally in Hades, actually. But, like, all 3 games are kind of, like, different attempts to defy the end. And it's very funny then that, like, Hades has something called Death Defiances, when it feels like that's what, and I know from what I've read about Pyre is also kind of like that. So it feels like Supergiant is very interested in this idea of pushing back against the end. And when it finally does come, like, how do you deal with it? And how do you, like, do you accept it? Do you take it back? Do you move forward? Like, what do you do when presented with that? And, I think that's really, really interesting. And we have such a, like, Red and the Kid are so different because
I was literally just about to say that.
The Kid is, he has a backstory, and this is one of the most impossible things to explain if you have not played these games. But when you play Bastion, you are the Kid. When you play Transistor, you are watching Red. Mm-hmm.
I totally understand what you mean.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that feeling, maybe it's because even though the kid is also mute, there's still he's like a silent protagonist, but there's still the implication that he's speaking. Like, it's just that Rux is doing all the talking for everybody.
Right.
Whereas, like, Red is explicitly unable to speak, and so, except for a handful of times, we are never given any, like, insight into her inner world. And so there is a degree of separation between us and the player character. It almost feels more like the Transistor is the audience surrogate.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
More so than Red. She feels so completely, like, divorced from us, even though we are technically controlling her actions. So it's so interesting in that way. And so that's why there's, like, no choice at the end. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here.
I think
go ahead.
There's two things I want to, and I'll say this first.
No,
I want to get to the second one because it's just a tangent. But the first one is, I think that's a really good idea because Mr. Nobody or the Transistor does all the talking. We're automatically drawn to his perspective. He is reacting to what Red does, and so even though we're in control, the narration itself, just like Bastion with Rux, is reacting to what, the protagonist does. But Rux is a kind of, ambiguous narrator.
Right.
The implication is that he's telling Zia what happened, because late in the game, like, he refers to Zia as you, and, he's just telling her the story of what's been going on. Whereas Mr. Nobody is just talking to Red.
Yeah, he is directly reacting, whereas Rux is legitimately narrating what's going on. The
other thing is just a side note that I forgot to mention, because I just think it's one of my favorite little moments in Bastion. But after you save Zia from the Ura, and you return her harp.
Yep.
And the line the kid says is just, "Excuse me, miss, did you drop this?"
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, oh, that's so good.
It's so good. It's so good. Oh, my God.
Just like Zagreus, the kid is such a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. We don't get a lot of access to what he's thinking in the way we have for other characters. But he is implied to be just like a nice kid who is just trying to make it in what sounds like a pretty shitty place.
Yeah.
But
it is interesting, like, the difference between Red and the kid, not just in that perspective, but also, like, Bastion and the kid are at first about the kid doing what he's told, because he has nothing going on in his life.
Right.
Besides that, he lost his mother. So he went back to the only thing he knew at that time. He didn't care about money anymore. He didn't care about his own safety or recovery. He needs to be told what to do.
Right.
Whereas Red loses her voice and loses the man she loves, and she decides that she is going to kill some people.
It's so cool. She kicks so much ass.
She does. She's great.
She's just immediately like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna kill some people. Like, and it's super interesting because you just get the sense, because she's so far from us, because, she can't speak. She only has a handful of times where she can say things using the chat interface. And every single one of her lines in those kicks ass too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna find this thing and break its heart. And it's like, yes. But like, she feels so distant, and she just immediately kind of seems to know that, like, the world is ending, and is like, well, if the world is ending, then I am going to go and get my bloody vengeance on, like, the people who, destroyed my city, took my voice away, killed my boyfriend, and then she does all of that. It owns. It's so interesting to just have, like, this sense that even though you are controlling, like, her actions, you really don't have any like genuine control over her, which is important because that's why the ending is the way it is. Mm-hmm. Like everything. I think the last, I don't know, 30 minutes of Transistor are probably some of my favorite just like tone pieces in a video game.
Like I was playing it and I'm like, I can't wait till I get to that ending.
Like, Ben, why am I drawing a blank on what final boss's name is? It's not Reese. It's It starts with an R, right?
Yeah, it does. Why can't I think of it now?
Hold on.
I literally just did this.
I know. Hold on. Royce?
Royce.
Is it Royce?
Yes.
Hold on. I don't trust myself. I'm sorry.
It's Sybil, Grant, Asher, and Royce.
It is Royce.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Royce Brackett. That's it. Because I always thought his name was really great.
Oh, that's a fucking amazing name.
Absolutely solid. But that final like boss fight with Royce and like the opening of them in the field, and it's so, you know, the whole game we've been so like emotionally distant from Red, and everything in this scene is so like cold. Like Royce himself has no personal issue with Red. He just wants control of Cloudbank. Mm-hmm. Like I think he even says something like it's kind of a shame that this is gonna happen. By the way, Royce's voice actor is also fucking amazing. Like he has such like interesting line reads. He has such a stilted way of speaking that it also does a good job of distancing us from him.
Yeah.
And making him feel so like strange and alien to us. But it's also kind of endearing in that way too. But like he doesn't have any personal animosity toward Red. He just wants control of Cloudbank. He just wants to make the city in his image. And that whole scene is so like cold. It's really intense, but it's not like Dante versus Virgil.
Right. It's
something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. It's from like that moment to the ending. It just feels like we're really building toward. And at the time if you've never played the game, one, why are you listening to this podcast?
Right.
and two, you have no idea what it's building toward, but it's such an incredible tension as like, you know, you fight Royce and it's like, oh, well, Red has control now, but like Red doesn't seem like the kind of person who wants control.
Right.
And so it's like, what is this leading toward? And I love it. I just love that whole scene of making your way back to where it all began. And like the music is building. You know, it's that really, like, intense kind of just mounting tension. You're like, what? Like, how is this going to end? And, like, it's so vital that you don't know Red's inner world, and you have not made, except for, like, a handful of dialogue choices in the chat, you have had absolutely no input in what she does. Like, mm-hmm. It was always going to end with you fighting Royce.
Yeah. The kid is a blank slate by default. Like, mm-hmm. even his personality is, he doesn't really care about himself.
Sure. And that makes sense considering what Bastion is about. You know, you start in like a blank, empty world and build it around you. Like, yeah, but like when you start Transistor is the exact opposite, actually, now that I think about it. Because you start in a fully formed world that is slowly, like, stripped away of everything until literally all that's left is the main character, who, again, you can never fully know. And so, like, we've been so distant from this character this whole time. You have no idea how this is going to end, and then it finally just, like, you know, then that ending happens.
And you're just like, oh, she never wanted, like, to continue.
No, she never wanted control. No, she never wanted... She never wanted to... I mean, like, what is there to live for?
Yeah.
Or even... I don't even know. And it's not even... Like, in a way, it's not really killing herself. She's kind of just taking a gamble. And that's even what Royce says in the final boss. He says it's just a gamble to see, like, who's left, essentially. And so she's taking a gamble to see if she'll end up in the same place inside the transistor as him. Because that is preferable. You know, when you live in a computer the way everybody does, I assume.
That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, by the way, is this like a Tron situation? Is it like...
Wait, give me 2 seconds. I just gotta say, if you live in a computer like I think they do in this game, then all she's doing is going further into the simulation, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, she's not really killing herself, but I don't know. Anyways, yeah, do they live in a computer? I think they live in a computer.
I think they're computer programs. I think Cloudbank isn't like a real flesh and blood place. I think it's a computer program.
Yeah, it's a simulated world, which doesn't matter. I think is that a thing we've talked about before on this episode or in this show, where it's like if everything is a simulation, it doesn't matter because it's still real to the people living in it. I think that's a conversation we've had.
Oh yeah, we've talked about Kingdom Hearts.
You bitch. But yeah, no, I think they're in a computer. I mean, I guess you could, but like even like the dead people are more like lingering pieces of programming. That's how they're presented, like less so than being ghosts. I mean, they're literally slotted in as like chips and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think they are. And I mean, like Grant is called an administrator, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, not like a mayor or something like that. So, I think they're in a computer.
I think it's a computer simulation thing.
Yeah, like, it's kept intentionally vague because it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like, you know, this is what people are, you know, it's real to them. It's like the city exists to them, but I mean, like it's kind of the only way. I mean, it doesn't have to matter either because like it's a fairy tale.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fairy tale. It's kind of like why didn't the townspeople notice that the prince had been turned into a beast in Beauty and the Beast? It doesn't matter. It's a fairy tale. Don't worry about it. Like, don't overthink. You're thinking about it too hard. So like when I say to you, the only way that like the city could be constantly changing is if it was a computer, I say that knowing that it doesn't matter.
Right.
You know?
The only reason I ask the question is because just like to get an appreciation for the broader scope of the situation. Like,
yeah.
It's just it's just a fun thing to think about. Like,
yeah, absolutely, totally.
Is this a Tron?
This is a Tron.
I think it's a Tron.
I think it's a Tron. I mean, we literally see the city being deleted and wiped clean, like the way you would delete a hard drive.
Right.
And I think that's all, like, the ending of this game is so sad for so many reasons than just Red kills herself. That's actually, like, the least sad thing, at least to me, is that, like, Red kills herself because, I mean, obviously, Red gets what she wants and she's happy, you know? In the end, Red gets exactly what she's always wanted. So, like, that's not the sad part. The sad part is, like, when you're leaving the fight with Royce and, like, everything has just been reduced to just white slabs of nothing. And it's so, it's the tragedy of it. It is, and, I mean, like, they've really been building toward it because they have you so, at the beginning of the game, just so, like, inundated with the beauty of Cloudbank. You know, you fight in its streets, and you go to her apartment, and you see these gardens, and it's all so gorgeous, and you know, they slowly, like, take it away from you in, like I said, like, the opposite direction of the way Bastion worked, really.
Right.
Is they take all this beauty away from you to make you, like, really be like, oh, fuck. It's like, that's the tragedy.
And it's great because, like, you get early on where it's like, no, Mr. Nobody is like, you know, oh, we'll fix this, you know, etc., blah, blah. And you think about Bastion and how Bastion's whole point, like, the narrative was about fixing the end of the world. And the point of the game is that by the end of it, it's no longer about that.
Yeah.
But, or it's about moving on and continuing, you know, in the world that is left behind. Whereas Transistor is just, it ends.
Yeah,
and,
like, the world ends, and they make it pretty apparent that, like, even if Royce had beaten Red and taken control, or if Red had decided that's what she wanted in life, like, what is gone is gone.
Yeah, whatever...
Like, there's no putting Cloudbank back to the way it was.
Whatever Red would have made was not bringing everything back. It would have been a new version of it.
Right, like, the stuff that is gone has been deleted. It's been sent to the country, you know?
Yeah.
It's gone somewhere deeper in the programming or whatever you want to call it. Like, you can't bring that stuff back after it's gone. So, like, there's no fixing it, like he says. Like, Mr. Nobody says, we're going to fix this. But, like, the truth is that there is no fixing this. There's only making peace with what happened, and then rolling the dice and hoping you get the ending you always wanted.
Right.
Which, you know, is pretty good. I really like the ending of Transistor, like, a whole fucking lot.
It's a pretty good story, and it ends in a pretty good way, and I enjoy it.
I love the story. I love, like, everything about the story of Transistor. Like, I love the world, and I love just, like, the camera, like, fuck the Camerata, because, like, how dare you destroy something so beautiful, because you want it to stay, stagnant, you want it to stay the same, but, like, I do think all four of them are extremely interesting characters.
They have really good designs, and...
Oh, God, yes, they do.
The best kind of, like, oh, you guys are just psychotic, I get it now.
But, like, they're still, like...
But that like, charming version of it.
Sure.
They're very Bakano character-esque, honestly.
Absolutely. They're very, like, what we learn of them is very likable, and, like, even knowing what they've done. And to a degree, you get the sense that, like, Grant did not expect this to happen. So that's, of course, why he killed himself.
Which, by the way, I love that he's labeled as coward.
Yeah.
For doing that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because, again, this is, like, our very rare insight into what is going on in Red's head. Like, because this is, you know, she can't talk to us, but all of the text is hers. Like, the text in the, like, in the chat program, that's all her. That all belongs to her. And so labeling, you know, Grant a coward, like, that's her. That's how she sees him, instead of just, like, Grant Kendrell, dead man. It's Grant Kendrell, like, coward. And it's like, oh, okay. But, like, he's really interesting. You know, Sybil being, having been in love with Red, and it all backfiring pretty spectacularly.
In a big way, I would say.
In a pretty big way. I like that her theme song is like a crazy fucked up version of In Circles, and those two tracks sync up perfectly, by the way. You can just play them together, and it's like a really cool duet.
Oh, I did not know that part. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's extremely cool. And yeah, like, Asher and Grant and Royce, I think they're all, like, really interesting characters, and, like, I just love so much of this game. It's so just textured, and like the art is so beautiful, and I haven't even talked about I like playing this game a whole hell of a lot more than I like playing Bastion.
Oh, the turn system and slotting in programs it's just like a world opening up.
Oh god. Yeah, and like you said, you can absolutely see again, like the seeds of Hades are all over this game with like these like tons of combinations of powers and leveling, and they change based on like if they're a passive or an active skill, and those can all combine as well. I mean, there is so much going on in Transistor.
Where it's like, you have Jaunt, which is your dash, and it's like, oh, well, if I put this on, then my dash heals me, or I can put this on that causes an explosion when I stop moving, or I can be invisible while I'm dashing, and I'm in trouble now.
Yeah, and it's like that is directly imported into Hades because they realized how good of an idea it is to mess with your dash.
So in this playthrough, because I had to do, because it's default's a new game plus, right?
Right.
So I do that, and I'm like messing around with it, and I'm like, I can't do this, and I had to go and set my movement options to mimic Hades. Where it's
how did you do that? How did you make that happen?
Well, on my Xbox controller, the bottom button, A, dash.
Oh, okay.
The left button is my basic attack, so just a close range attack. My Y attack is a heavy attack. My upper button is a heavy attack, and my right button is a projectile.
Perfect.
And I'm like, no, this has to be like Hades. I can't. The Hades
you
instincts
spent too much time. That muscle memory is way too strong.
The instinct, and I'm like, God, Red, can you dash a little faster, please?
Please?
And I'm like,
my perfect angry girl,
they're
can
like,
you
no,
move just a little faster?
It's got a cooldown. No, it shouldn't have a cooldown. Why can't I do 2 in a row?
Hey, can we also have a really quick conversation? Why the fuck is the kid so slow?
Kid's real slow. Even when you start rolling around, kid's real slow.
I just roll everywhere. Like, I just gotta roll everywhere to feel like I'm making any kind of progress. Because, like, he's just really taking his time, huh?
He's got little legs, Sarah. He's got little bitty legs. He can't go very fast, okay?
He's got little stumpy legs, he wants to admire the scenery, okay?
He's got a big torso and giant... He's got the build of a Patrick Warburton character, okay?
He's got the build of a Final Fantasy VII model, okay?
He can't run very fast. Zagreus and Red have long, slender legs. They can zip around all they want. You can't expect Gimli to keep up with Legolas.
It's so true. No, that was like the biggest thing I was noticing while playing Bastion. I'm like, can you please move faster, my perfect boy?
Which like, I have to believe that, like, in the event that, like, the three of them cross over, like, yeah, the kid would only come up to, like, Zag and Red's waist. Like,
he's just a little stumpy boy. Yeah, absolutely.
They are, like, dwarves or gnomes. Like, that's their size.
Yeah, no, they don't have, like... It's not that they're like little chibi characters like Tales of Symphonia. That's just what they look like.
Yeah, it's not an abstraction. They're halflings.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of hobbits. Absolutely. Like, I'm sorry. So yeah, I guess that is why he's so short. Mm-hmm. But going to Transistor is like, oh, thank God.
Oh yeah, she can zip around. You can.
She can book it. It's great. Oh, thank God.
I do have some problems with turn, and maybe it's just because I'm not doing it right, but I don't know how I did it last time. Mm-hmm. Where I'm just like, I'm constantly like, I should be doing more damage than this. Why am I not doing more damage than this? And I think that's Hades poisoning, where it's like, Hades is like, oh yeah, you can stack all these wounds at the same time, and they'll just drain enemy health instantly. But it's like, these things don't stack in Transistor. Why are you doing the same attack over and over again? Stop it. It's not going to stack.
Ben, you did New Game Plus, right?
Yeah.
Ben, the enemies get harder in New Game Plus.
Oh, do they? Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, because it's already completed file. Like, the enemies get way harder in New Game Plus.
I'm like, this should be easier. I should be destroying these guys. Why aren't they dying quickly?
Because you're playing the game with, like, all your late game shit. Like, that carries over. So it's gonna be harder.
Yeah, well, I knew that, but I was like, I didn't expect it to actually, like, it's not significantly harder.
No, but they have more HP and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that tingling in your brain where it's like, these should be stacking better.
No, yeah, that's why. Like I think they even change like what spawns. Like
yeah, because I remember
you get different enemy types and stuff because you're on New Game Plus.
Doing early game stuff and being like, I don't remember there being young ladies here.
Oh yeah, no, that's because you're on New Game Plus.
Yeah. Which again, just like Bastion, where it's like Squirt and Gas Bag and Windbag and all these great enemy names.
A+ enemy names.
Oh my, fucking incredible! Just absolutely young lady, gentleman that shoots out haircut. I love that.
Yeah, it's good. There's just so yeah, like, and like a thing that I don't think it's talked about enough in Transistor that I really like is how it reworks dying or running out of HP, I should say. Because, like, when you run out of HP, you don't immediately die. You just lose access to one of your functions. Mm-hmm. So you can, like, keep going, and it's there to motivate you to play better.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Because it's like, you only have 4 active, and usually the one that breaks, because it's the one that breaks first is the highest memory cost, right?
Yes.
It's like, cause
yes.
And that usually, if you're playing like me, and I'm betting playing like you, usually gonna be Jaunt, because Jaunt's costly, and you want to dash.
Yes, exactly.
So, Jaunt breaks, and then it's like, okay, fucker, get real good at keeping distance without a dash.
Keep running, have fun, and I think it's really like that combination of that and like the fact that you can just combine your functions in so many, I mean, a truly insane number of ways, is just so much fun to me. Like, playing with all the different combinations. I love Charm, or whatever the fuck it's called. All of the different, like, options, and it's so crazy to me playing Hades and then going back to Transistor, how much is just, they were literally just like, we have all this shit still laying around from Transistor, let's just name it after different Greek gods and call it a day, you know?
Like, the duo boons are just combinations of your programs in Transistor.
It's incredible. And I mean, like, I respect it, but I think it's because, like, Transistor didn't get, like, the insane amount of laurels that like, Bastion got. They're like, fuck it, if people aren't gonna appreciate this work in Transistor, we're just gonna stick it in Hades and kind of clean it up a little bit. Fuck you. We're not gonna let this work go to waste. I mean, it's totally fine. Like,
it's great.
I like Hades a lot, and I like Transistor a lot, so it works out perfectly.
I think that is, like, just an absolute brilliant way of customizing your character, which is you have 8 ability, or 10? No, you have, because you can slot everything into it, so you have 4, and then those ones have 16. You have 16 abilities.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you can do math, because I'm sitting here over, like, on my end, just going like, I don't know.
Yeah, you have 16 abilities, so you can, and each one of them has a primary function, a support function, and a passive function.
Yes.
And it's just so, and if you're doing New Game Plus, you can earn multiple of the same one.
Yes.
So you can just stack the effect and, like, do twice as much. Oh my god.
It's so strong.
Because that was the thing where it's like, oh, my jaunt broke. I have a backup jaunt.
Allow me to just use my second John. Haha, fuckers. Just skipping around the stages some more. It's so good. But yeah, like, I love Transistor. I love Transistor so much.
Transistor's so fucking good in
it's so
every aspect.
Beautiful. It's so beautiful. And yeah, I think Bastion has like a slightly better soundtrack, but like only a slightly better soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And like I said, I still think Transistor has the better vocal tracks. Like, I think the spine is just the spine is so good.
The thing like the thing you have to say about each Supergiant game is like what's the best Logan Cunningham and who is the best Ashley Lynn Barrett.
The best, this Mr. Nobody is my best Logan Cunningham. Damn it. He's just, and maybe it's because I'm just a delicate maiden who is easily wooed by romantic speech, but he's just so dang heartfelt in every single line to Red that I'm just like, oh.
Like, Rux is great because he's a fucking brilliant narrator. Oh my god. Like, he like, just the phrases he uses and whatnot and his accent are so strong. But in terms of like, hey, we've made this guy who is just like this washed up, tired boxer who is just madly in love with this singer, and he's gonna say it every second he can.
Every single second of the game, he's just finding new and creative ways to tell his girlfriend he loves her. And it's like, how can you not love this guy? He's incredible. It's just, he has so much personality, and he's really funny, and when he gets drunk and he just kind of wants to slur about how great Red is, like, I love him. He's like one of my favorite Supergiant characters, period, and he's a sword.
It's like every Supergiant game also needs the guy who's just a really, really, really nice guy.
He's just a nice... We've got the kid, we've got Zagreus, and we've got Mr. Nobody, or the boxer, whatever you want to call him.
Because it's certainly not Red.
It is sure as hell not Red. The angriest little woman in all of Cloud Bank, who is just like I said, she has that one brilliant line where she says, I'm going to find the thing that's doing this to you, and I'm going to break its heart. And you're just like, oh, she's not happy. That's not a happy lady. Okay, that's fine. You go do you.
And then Mr. Nobody's like, oh, I love her so much.
I love her so much. She's so great. She's just like this little angry, tiny angry woman with a big sword, and I love her. I love Transistor.
You know, we mentioned it earlier, but I want to just roll back again. It's that Supergiant touch though of when you do like the public boards, you know, like the comments you can leave. Mm-hmm. The bits where she backspaces and rethinks what she's gonna type.
Yeah, that's so good.
It's one of those touches you would never ever think to do until someone else did it first, and you're like, oh my god, that's a brilliant idea.
It's so good because you can kind of see like this second guessing of how emotionally open she's deciding, like, because like the way it usually works is that the first thing she writes is more like open, and then she reconsiders and decides to like close herself off more. And again, it's like we are given such few insights into what is going on in her head that like you have to kind of take what you get and extrapolate off of it, and you know, so you have this idea, and it's really interesting because like you kind of get this sense of like somebody who, even in her character background that kind of unlocks as you play the game, like you get with everybody, you kind of get this sense that she was very like she's an incredibly talented singer, but she is not very open as a person. Like, she's a quiet person even before she lost her voice. And she, like, used singing as her means of expressing herself because she was not a very, like, chatty individual.
Yeah.
And so... Oh, go ahead.
She never seems too beaten up about losing her voice.
Yeah, but I mean, she is angry about losing her singing voice.
Yeah.
Because, like, she has lost the ability, like, what seems to be her only means of expressing herself comfortably. Like, the only way she feels okay with letting the world know, like, what's going on in her head, she has now lost. And so, like, that's another reason to be so pissed. And so, like, when she is typing out comments in the message boards and stuff, you really get this sense of somebody who has kind of always second-guessed how emotionally open she needs to be. And then, of course, obviously, it's like, oh, yeah, because she was always just open with, like, the boxer, with, like, the person she loved the most. And since she's now had that taken away from her, like, yeah, she's fucking pissed. It's great.
Red to me is the kind of character who is like, when the boxer first said I love you, she said thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Here we have this extremely lovesick man, and she's just like, oh, cool, thanks.
Yeah, great. She's using the thumbs up.
Awesome. It's just like, oh, I love her even more now. It's so good. Yeah, it's just...
So...
I do think this is my favorite Supergiant game. Like,
so
even though I know in my soul that Hades is the better game.
In conclusion, what I want is for the Kid and Red to be DLC characters in Hades.
Ooh,
so that I
yes!
can just do roguelike shit with them.
I love this plan. I actually like this idea. Just import their gameplay.
Yeah.
Like, just stick the turn system into Hades and see what happens. It's fine.
Let us go in with 2 weapons as the Kid and, like, pick a bunch of tonics. He doesn't get boons. Yep. But you can pick all the different spirits and whatnot you want. Let us, every few floors, let us find a terminal that we can use to pick our new loadout for the Transistor. And just let us see how far we can get.
I just want to see, keep the frozen time turn system with Red. Just put that in Hades and see what happens. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure that won't break the game over its knee. Don't worry about it.
God, that would be so fucking cool, though.
It would be so much fun. Are you kidding me? Oh my god.
Supergiant, if you are listening to this,
to our teeny tiny little podcast,
that one's free.
You don't have to pay us for that one. No, We usually ask for money for our incredible ideas. But, like, this one, you can have it. It's cool.
That's free. Just fucking... God, I mean, just... And then can you fucking imagine, like, you get Logan Cunningham to do narration for the Kid?
Yeah,
or, like, do more commentary for Red?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good idea. Fantastic. Have the sword shit talk, Meg. Instead. Just have the sword talk shit to Theseus, please. I'm sure while Theseus and the sword are arguing, Red and Asterius are just, like, nodding respectfully at each other, just like, we don't talk a lot and we smash. It's fine.
I can just fucking imagine, like, Theseus, like, doing his monologue, and then, like, Rux is just like, Kid never cared much for showboating.
Yeah. I want Theseus to, like, start doing his monologue and then be like, wait, you aren't Zagreus. Who the fuck are you? Oh my god.
Oh my god, it would be incredible.
Okay, we gotta wrap it up.
We do.
I love I will say, like I said, I think Transistor, even though, like, in my soul I know Hades is the better game and is definitely more fun to play, like, I still think Transistor has a handful of problems. Just, like, when you can't use turn, it can feel kind of janky sometimes.
Yeah.
and little things like that. But like it's still my favorite Supergiant game. If it hasn't been incredibly obvious by how highly I speak of this game, yeah.
The thing I'll say about that's nice is that like Hades is refreshing because it's not about the end of the world, and I think if they did a third end of the world game, I'd be too depressed to like actually try to enjoy it.
I think that's what Pyre is about. I think Pyre is another end of the world, or it's like I think it's like a Being Dead game. I'm not sure, but like,
I needed a break from everything that is falling apart, and there's no saving it.
There's nothing you can do to fix it.
I needed a game where it's like everyone's dead, but it's okay because we've been here our whole lives.
It's fine. Everybody's dead, but it's cool. Don't worry about it. Like, here, have a bunch of characters being goofy and arguing with each other all the time. It's fine. Have fun. We're not here to break your heart this time. Yeah. Don't worry. But yeah, I think we should wrap it up. In conclusion, Supergiant makes good video games. Who knew? I'm always going to look forward to. I was actually looking back, and I remember like when Transistor first got announced, and the trailer just opened with "from the creators of Bastion," and I'm like, "Money, here you go. Here you go. It is. You may play it. You may take it from me."
That's all I needed. I can close this trailer now.
I don't need to know anything else. It's incredible that they've kept it up too. Like, I mean, I think Pyre is like their least well-received game because I know it's like very different. Mm-hmm. It's like turn-based basketball or something like that.
Yeah, it's a basketball RPG, I guess.
Which is sure. I also liked the Charles Barkley RPG.
Jam Guide.
Thank you. Yep. But yeah, no, I think, but like, even Pyre has its insane fans. I know I think it's Roddy who's constantly like yelling at me to play Pyre. It's either her or Shia. Hi guys. I'll get around to it eventually. I'm playing 13 Sentinels right now. Leave me alone.
Pyre's a lot longer than Bastion and Transistor. I'm like, we're gonna do these things. So how long? What can we do? Just do one? I'm looking at like Bastion 8 hours. Oh, okay. Transistor, okay. 10 hours. Okay, yeah, all right. We can do both.
Yeah, no, it's super easy to do both in like the 2 weeks or however long we took. Mm-hmm. I think Pyre is a bit more substantial, so that would have to be its own episode. I think because it also has a lot more characters, too. And
then 100%ing Hades is like 90 hours.
Never happening. I've got to play 13 Sentinels. I'm sorry. But that being said, I am shocked at the consistent quality of their releases. Once again proving crunch culture doesn't work. Go be like Supergiant. Just make, treat your employees right. It's incredible what'll happen.
Less mandatory overtime, more mandatory vacations, and then you get Hades out of it.
Yeah, the best game of 2020 when you make people go on vacation. Get pulled into the boss's office to be like, I see you haven't taken any vacation in 8 months. You gotta go, man.
It turns out when people have fun at work, they like to make fun things.
It's crazy. I know. It's an insane idea. Anyway,
go play all Supergiant games forever. Never stop playing Supergiant games. Never stop playing Hades because you really don't have to ever stop. It just goes on forever.
Please play Transistor then come talk to me in the Discord about how beautiful Transistor is. Thank you.
Play Transistor. Play Bastion. Just play all of them. They're all really, really fucking good. Just listen to that soundtrack.
All the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're good.
We're good.
Thanks, Broke Free, for your background music. You can follow me on Twitter at thegorgepodcast. You can follow Sara at radioinactivity. And if you want to listen to Sara talk about other cool things that might have some cool music and cool plot lines, and also maybe about the end of the world sometimes, you can listen to our other podcast.
Have we had an episode about the end of the world yet? Maybe. I don't know. We have so many games. Hey, I'm in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds, where me and a bunch of cool queer friends get together when we try out different tabletop games. We run lots of different systems and have all kinds of neat stories going. It's a lot of fun. By the time you are hearing this, we will have just wrapped up Under Hollow Hill, an RPG about like a cool magic circus show. And then, hopefully, by next week, Masks will be back.
Yay!
The superhero RPG. So please look forward to that. I know I am. You can find us at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to the rest of our social media from there. Thanks.
Alright, that'll do it for us.
We can't say fuck Rux, because one, it rhymes.
Fuck anyone who left Zolf behind, honestly. I know there's like
honestly,
3 of you in the world.
Like, I'm sorry, that guy got a raw deal. Frankly, he was... I mean, the fact that he didn't just, like, strangle Rux with his, like, bare hands is a testament to his restraint, because I would have. So, that alone means he's not that bad of a guy, and you should absolutely spare him. Plus, the scene of him, like, carrying Zolf and, like, all of the aura is so good.
We didn't even talk about how good that fucking scene is!
I know! We'll do it right now. Hey, that scene owns! Holy shit.
That scene is so good, and again, that super giant touch, where it's when they stop firing and then the one starts shooting and his commanding officer murders him.
Yeah, because, like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, this is somebody doing something really honorable.
Like,
he's taking, like, arrows in the back. You can't avoid taking damage in that sequence. Like,
that slow realization that he's not fighting back. He's just trying to leave.
He just wants to leave. And the fact that, like, you know, the aura... It's partly probably self-preservation. Because, like, the aura kicked Zolf's ass because, like... They were like, how dare you bring this crazy person to our doorstep to come kill us all? Like, this is your fault. We're going to beat your ass for it. So they probably stopped because, like, what if he puts Zolf down? You know? Like,
oh,
if
shit.
If he puts Zolf down, we're all dead. You know?
Yeah.
But no, that scene owns. That soundtrack in that moment is just like, oh, that song.
God, it's so fucking... I'm gonna go listen to the Bastion soundtrack and the Transistor soundtrack. Fuck
And the
it, why not?
Transistor. It's fine. Why not? I mean, you know, you can just let both of them run indefinitely. It's fine. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.